Welcome to Mega Wellness Summit. I'm your host, Nikki Jencen. Thank you for your continued support and listening every day. My hope for you is you're gaining knowledge and applying what you learned to your life. One of the biggest challenges for myself and my clients is what to eat for snacks. That's why I'm talking to Mike Shur, who began a new kind of business. Mike Shur, who launched Jurky with his wife, is truly an inspiration. Mike and his wife are on a mission to revolutionize the snack business. Welcome, Mike Shur. How are you? Thanks so much for being part of Mega Wellness Summit.
Good morning. It's good to be here. I'm glad you asked us to participate.
Yeah. Well, I met you, I didn't really truly meet you, but I know you through social media. You have a big presence on social media, and I'm so excited about Jurky because it's truly a new way of snacking.
Yeah, I think so. We met, I think it was like almost a year ago that we met. I'm glad that we did.
For all those people who don't know what Jurky is.
Sure. So simply put, we do a different take on a really simple snack food. When people think of jerky, they tend to think of, there's a kind of a stigma associated with it. And so we've taken a different approach. Our jerky is sustainable. So our snacks are sustainable, and they're from local ranchers, and they're for people leading active and healthy lifestyles, and for people with sophisticated tastes. That is the essence of our brand.
Well, you sent me a sample of Jurky, and I absolutely loved it.
Well, our goal was to really bridge health and taste. When I started this back in 2010, it didn't originate as a company. It was just something that I made for myself because I had an interest and passion in jerky, and I couldn't find something on the market that was both healthy and tasty. It was one or the other. And so did a lot of work with the marinade, with customers and feedback over the past several years, and we've essentially bridged the gap between healthy and tasty. So all the meats are clean, they're free range, the ingredients are non-GMO spices. We pulled out soy sauce, we use liquid aminos, and instead of sugar, we use real fruit. Right now it's pineapple, but we've used others. So you get the health benefits of eating real food, and the flavor is still intact without the stickiness, the mess, and the massacre in your mouth. Some of the other jerkies out there are just they're tough, or they're kind of like meat candy. So you eat it, and it's like a sticky mess.
Right. And why is jerky your passion?
I don't know. Everybody kind of gravitates towards a food, I think. My culture is, so I was born in Russia, and, we like to eat scary things, as my wife Megan likes to call it, scary meat. I grew up in a culture that it enjoys like salamis and smoked sausages and cured hams and lots of pickled things. So jerky was a snack that you could take on the go with you. And whenever I'd go hiking and be outside, it was just one of those things that I would try to get, from somebody on the side of the road, like a little jerky shack or a small farmer, whenever we'd be traveling. And over the years, I just kind of developed, your taste buds change, your flavor and appreciation for things change as you grow older, for better or for worse. And so for me, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm not really happy with what's on the market. This isn't stuff I'd eat on a regular basis. I feel guilty. I'm paying for something because it's expensive, right? I mean, you have to dehydrate it, and you lose a lot of water. We pay for meat by pound. So I got to the point where I decided, okay, let me try to make it on my own. And there's an interesting story behind that. My buddy's grandfather in college actually made homemade jerky, and Anthony used to ration it off to me. So, I'd knock on the door across our dorm freshman year, and he'd literally, give me a little bit, because he only had, a pound or something. But when I decided to actually try to make it, that story came to mind, and I thought, okay, well, if I could take what Anthony's grandfather did and try to make it with healthy ingredients, that'd be a pretty awesome product.
Were you into health before making jerky?
To an extent. I think health is a journey. It's not really a destination, much like lots of other things, like happiness. So I exercised regularly. I don't know that my diet was as good as it could have been, but I wasn't regularly eating junk food, nor was I regularly eating large amounts of meat. So I would say it was a typical college, experience in terms of my fitness and wellness. I think over the years I've learned that there are better foods that I can eat and more vegetables. Fresher is better. Processed, we tend to avoid the inside aisles of the supermarket, shop on the outside.
When you say that you're using all grass-fed beef, and one of the biggest things that you mentioned is that it's sustainable. And what is your long-term goal as far as keeping this sustainable?
It's a great question. So definitely, we are using grass-fed and grass-finished beef right now from Oregon farmers and ranchers, but we also do pork, turkey, and bison, and it's all from the Pacific Northwest right now. So in order to keep the system sustainable, you basically have to recreate what we did here locally in different regions of the country, because there's an abundance of land. So there are farmers and ranchers who have excess land right now, and let's say there's a farmer who has about 100 acres, but he's only using about 2 or 10 because there's not enough demand for his product, because he's not good at sales and marketing and many other reasons. So there's an oversupply of available lands right now and not enough demand for consumers. So what companies like ours are trying to do, what Jurky strives to achieve, is to help those ranchers and farmers find a home for the animals that they wish to raise. And in turn, they can put more animals on their lands, and we can sustainably provide the meats to consumers in a variety of different formats. Jurky just happens to be a delivery mechanism for one of our marinades. So in order to make it sustainable, if each system was closed loop, think of it this way. You live in southeastern United States in Georgia, and you're familiar with the ranchers and the farmers there. You've been living there for 20, 30 years, and there are certain producers who have name brand recognition already. People know that just because someone says organic, they may be cutting corners. The smaller mom and pop ranchers, they have a hard time being compliant. But they have good product, and they have good practices. So our mission is to essentially tap into their system so that they can put more animals on the land, because we have an outlet for it through a variety of different products. And also tap into the regional production infrastructure, the niche USDA processors who have very seasonal sales, and look for products that plug those gaps. So by sourcing regionally and providing product regionally and producing regionally, we're essentially creating several closed-loop systems throughout different geographies around the country.
Wow. That is amazing. That is a true plan. That is a true plan you have.
I think that is sustainable, because anything else is difficult to keep sustainable. If we're, like right now, I wouldn't even say we're traditionally long-term sustainable, because we ship, most of our sales are online, direct to consumer from our website, but we ship around the country. And ultimately, the goal is to provide product not from a central, distribution center, but from the very region where it's produced. So somebody from New York orders product, they're most likely going to get it from the Northeast versus having it shipped from Portland, Oregon. And it's really inexpensive to build what I just suggested. It's already there. It's just pulling the pieces together. So the hurdle from our standpoint has been finding the right farmers and ranchers who we click with, who are doing it the right way. So we do due diligence on them. And finding those processors who see the paradigm shift in consumer trends, healthy eating practices, and just overall a real communal, good way of life.
Now, you mentioned that you're finding farmers that are grass-feeding their animals and then finishing them off with grass-fed. A lot of other farmers are finishing them off with grain. Why are they finishing them off with grain and then still selling them as grass-fed?
I think there are many consumers out there, and the consumer doesn't understand, and they're not as educated. So the the educated consumer is someone who takes initiative to make the distinction between what you just said, whether it's grass-fed to grain-finished or grass-fed and grass-finished. There's not many people that know that. I think that will change. And so farmers are just trying to do what they can, I think, to get by. You know, I've spoken with a few, and several actually, more than a few, but cows they're grazers, but they eat different types of plants, not just grass. They'll eat tree bark, and if you let them out, and so there are different schools of thought on that also. But like processed or, you know, dried grains, I don't know that they would actually be eating that in quantities that they are now. It fattens them up. So if our meat system, our food system actually, is designed to sell things by weight, everything is per pound or per kilogram depending on where you live, then the incentive for the producer, I think, is to increase the weight because they get paid by weight. So if they have a steer that's, you know, 1,000 pounds, that's better for them. They get more out of it than one that's, you know, 500 or 800.
I see.
But the taste is different. I can notice the difference between grass-fed and grain-finished and grass-fed with no grain. There's
right. I can't
a
do.
distinct flavor difference.
I agree. So how do you fit into this whole paleo or paradigm?
I think that we are, you know, the product originated in a CrossFit gym in New York when I was regularly CrossFitting, very active into it, and actually just starting, you know, changing my diet lifestyle to more paleo. And I actually went pretty hardcore with the paleo. I for a time, for like 6 to 8 months, I gave up alcohol, I gave up dairy, and I think that I probably got a little bit of processed sugars and like condiments, you know, ketchups, that kind of thing. And when you eat out, because you don't know what the chefs are putting in, you're going to get non-paleo foods, even though you think you're ordering like chicken and broccoli. But guess what? It's still loaded with stuff that's not paleo. So all that being said, it just originated from a lifestyle shift that happened, and we really, when I was learning about paleo and trying to figure out a product that had high protein, but also wasn't completely refined and processed. So from a paleo standpoint, which is, you know, simply if we just break it down, then there are different schools of thought, right? People are bastardizing paleo right now, and you see all these like desserts that are paleo this and paleo that. And so there's a whole different conversation we can have about that. But
yeah, I know what you mean.
Critically, paleo is no grain and no cane, right? So you're basically eating lean meats, not fatty meats. Major difference. A lot of vegetables, and you're avoiding processed sugars. But there's more. I mean, right? So there's like no soy, you know, technically no salt, no legumes, things that have high lectins, no nightshades, and then Whole30 was born out of that. So there are different standards, I think. So we don't identify ourselves as a paleo company or a paleo product per se. We're a healthy product. And for somebody who's living a paleo lifestyle or prefers to eat paleo 80-20, like 80% of the time, our product fits because literally it's free-range meats, whether it's our beef, which is grass-fed, grass-finished, or pork, which is our pork is as pastured as it could be. The system is changing in terms of, you know, putting pigs on land where they're not necessarily just housed indoors most of the time because they're omnivores. They eat through everything. Mm-hmm. So there's a hurdle for how to sustainably raise hogs. Free-range turkeys and grass-fed, grass-finished bison as well. But then we also pulled out sugar, and instead we use pineapple. And the pineapple tenderizes, sweetens, and naturally preserves our product, which doesn't have any additives or preservatives, so no nitrites, no sulfites, and obviously no hormones, no antibiotics. The grass that the animals eat is not treated with pesticides or chemical fertilizers. And then we use non-GMO spices. So very simple, like cayenne pepper, black pepper, onion powder, things like that. And Bragg liquid aminos. Now, Bragg is derived from soybeans. So someone could technically say, you're not a paleo product. Fair enough. Our other marinade uses coconut-based aminos instead of brag. So we sub out the brag with coconut aminos, which is a little bit sweeter. We actually just did a wine pairing event with 5 different varieties, and it worked out really well. The sweeter the meat got paired with sweeter wines. Whole30 that we use is technically almost pure paleo.
You are completely 100% gluten-free.
Totally, yeah. That for sure, because we don't use soy sauce, and most soy sauces have so many ingredients. I mean, if you actually dig in, it's kind of scary, and we don't. So we have less sodium because we use the liquid aminos, which is where the sodium comes from. And as a result, we're not adding any gluten ingredients in there. We have no gluten, therefore it's gluten-free.
And what people really need to know is that when you go and buy jerky at the store, that most likely has junk in it. It will have gluten in it because they're using soy sauce that has wheat.
Yeah, but the companies, they're being sneaky. They're being very tricky and duplicitous now, because the food claims that you can make on a label are so loosely regulated, and consumers don't know that. They think that what's on a label is truth. Hardly. What's on a label is marketing. And unless somebody makes a stink, companies push the envelope. So without naming names, we've watched the industry where companies have not only changed graphics and logos and style to appeal to certain audiences based on what other artisan jerky startups that are health and wellness minded that are doing, but they've also changed the nutritional content. They've changed not only the ingredients but the nutritional content on the label. And what I mean by that is the percentages. So all of a sudden, the product went from 8 grams of protein per ounce per serving to 13 grams of protein per ounce per serving. And you think, well, how can you do that? Well, the only way you can do that is to extract more water. If you dry the product longer or cook it or smoke it, they're frequently smoking it, same thing, you're essentially pulling out more water and you're concentrating the meat, and therefore that results in a higher protein count per ounce. But the product's drier. I haven't noticed a change in their product. It's fuzzy math on the label. But as long as nobody makes us think about it, the USDA does nothing. So consumers think they're getting one thing, but in reality they're getting something very different.
And, I think that for a lot of consumers, we're looking at nutrition labels, looking at the fat and the calories, and we're not looking at what's actually in it.
Yeah, I think as a society we need to avoid processed foods, and consumers can vote, and corporations will change based on what consumers do. If we don't support, then they have to change because they're all about chasing the dollar, right? That's the capitalist system. Mm-hmm. So if consumers actually support local, if they support real food from real producers who are using whole ingredients and things aren't completely radiated and all these packaged and cooked foods that are deep fried and grilled and boxed and vacuum sealed that have shelf lives of 6+ months and a year unnaturally because of all the stuff they're putting in it. None of that stuff, people weren't eating that 100 years ago, so there's no basic benchmark for it to even say, oh, how's this going to affect our health, right? So that's a separate argument. But basically, I think we need to go back to just eating lean grass-fed meat, and that includes venison and elk, but lean, right? Not animals that are sitting in a feedlot and barely moving around. The sizes of chickens, I think they're quadrupled since the 50s. It's scary. And they actually inject water into the meat now. Again, same thing. If you ever notice, when you cook and you put a chicken breast into a skillet, there's a ton of water in there. Well, there's a ton of water in there because they inject it with water, because then you're getting more weight and you pay more per pound.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. That is an aha moment.
That's a total industry practice. That's
That's an aha moment that I just had.
So I think we just need to eat more vegetables from farmers and ranchers that are seasonal, right? Stuff that's not shipped around the country or around the world. That's extreme, and we've been conditioned that that's cool. I don't think that's cool. I don't think it's cool that we buy something that was harvested by somebody who's almost a serf or a slave in a third world country, and just because we're here and we can buy it, we're supporting the system. And don't get me wrong, I'm not boycotting foods right now and say, oh, I'm not buying raspberries in the winter. But I think as a society, if there was a consciousness change and then our behaviors mimicked that change in consciousness, that awakening, then things would actually be very different. Real food, like, so if you don't want meats, real fish. Or if you don't want dairy, then real vegetables and fungi, nuts, and there's fruits. There's lots of stuff out there that's not processed and refined, but access to it is hard depending on where you live. When I lived in New York, it was almost easy to find anything anywhere. And there's PALEO meal plan companies and, grab and go stores, and there's a big cultural change that's happening in the major cities where the trends are started. But in the rest of the country, like fast food America, that's it. It's still very powerful. And if your options and choices are limited, then you have to shop wiser in the supermarket yourself and cook wiser. And people have busy lives, so you have to change your schedule. And it's a commitment. It's a total lifestyle change. And it's difficult to do when you've got a busy life and kids and school and house repairs and, But
you have to weigh out what's important to you.
Yeah, it's all about priorities, right? I mean, can't do everything unless you've got a ton of money.
Well, and, just by listening to the summit, it's influencing people to make changes in their whole life. And so just by listening to you and knowing that you have a product that can help people because they're trusting the ingredients that you're providing to them, because you're telling people that I have a sustainable product that is good not only for your body, but it's good for the environment as well. And that you have sourced out and you know your farmers and who you're buying from, and you know exactly what you're putting in your product. And your promise is that what you're going to be eating from my company is healthy for you. And it's completely 100% all natural, not the gimmick all natural. A lot of these companies are saying that it's all natural, and it isn't all natural. It's genetically modified.
Yeah. Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. I think it comes down to trust, right? Trust and quality. Once you establish trust, it's like any relationship with your spouse or with your friends, and that's been a major goal for us, just to establish trust with our consumers and to keep the quality consistent. And so we don't make exaggerated claims. We're not saying, like, even on our label, actually, we didn't make any claims. We didn't say grass-fed. We didn't say grass-fed. We made no claims in the very beginning, because the way the industry is structured is that it's harder to make those claims and sell. So we basically didn't take that approach. But people who really are interested, if they go and do the homework on our product and read the content that's out there, that we've posted in the public domain, they will see that there are very few companies like ours out there. Like Jurky is totally unique, not only in the product, but in the business model. It hits a trifecta of sustainability. It's good for society, it's good for the economy, and it's good for the ecology.
I agree. And people can go to shurkyjurky.com and order right off your website.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I mean, I think that more people are leaving the grocery store and visiting it less frequently and shopping online or at local co-ops or artisan grocers and, CSAs. I think that trend will continue. So our business model is not necessarily to be in every supermarket in front of every person and have the one-off purchase. No, we want to have loyal lifetime customers, like people who really find our products to be, they find them highly addictive. We hear that all the time, but they also don't feel guilty after they eat them. And we chose to send them directly to you because they're shelf stable, they don't expire. We don't have any death skin pack in there. They're actually preserved. But people can just go to our website and order online, much like Amazon, did with books in the beginning, and they expanded into a bunch of other products. And I think there's a ton of Jurky mail order subscriptions that are starting up now. I mean, There's like Club Jurky, there's Sumo Jurky, there's a lot. And a bunch of companies also deliver direct to consumer too. So some are distribution companies, they just like mail it to you. And others, they do like a different 2, 3, or 4 jerkies every month. And others are actually manufacturers, producers, artisans, and they also deliver. We haven't found the product that, and we're obviously biased. I'm a little biased because it's a product that I created with Megan, and we're pretty close to it. But I've tried literally hundreds of different products. I mean, I've got a box with the leftover bags from so many different companies, and a little bit of the product left because I want to see how long it will last, right, and what it tastes like in 6 months. And if it's bad, I throw it out. But we haven't found anything that's remotely similar to ours. If it tastes good, the ingredients are questionable. If it has really clean ingredients in it, it tends to taste like cardboard. And that is exactly the problem that we wanted to solve from a product standpoint. So we wanted to bridge health and taste so that you didn't have to sacrifice anything, that you were able to have both, sort of have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. But it took a little bit of time. So right now we're mostly mail order, and people can get it on our website. Yeah.
And you ship all over the world?
We ship around the country. There are places that we've hit APOs. A lot of soldiers in the country have ordered. We're working on building in a model that lets us reach other countries. That's not sustainable, so the shipping costs are way too expensive for small quantities right now. So the next phase, and it's not a near-term phase, but there's a longer-term phase that replicates the production model that I mentioned to you in the U.S. and other territories around the world also.
From Canada and Australia who are listening specifically. So if they wanted to try your product, what would you tell them?
I would say go to our website, sign up for the newsletter, and there's a drop-down. There's kind of a place at the top, a toolbar where you can type in your email, or at the bottom, send us a question, remark saying I'm interested in getting product or distributing you in our territory. So it's reach out to us, and we're pretty nimble, so we can figure out a custom arrangement that works for both parties, so we can have a win-win. And if it works, it works. And if it's too early, then we'll figure it out at a future point.
Exactly. Well, at least they can follow you on Facebook and Twitter, and you're on Instagram. And I love
Pinterest
your posts.
too. Thank you.
And Pinterest, you're all over it. And I love your posts. I share your posts. It's not just about jerky. It goes on a way deeper level than that. And so that's where, if we were just blasting out jerky, I don't think anyone would care. But what you do is you make it relatable to people's lives. And so anyways, I encourage everybody to follow you on all social media platforms. And, like we said, you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest. You're making a big difference in this world, Mike, and I appreciate it. You and your wife are doing amazing things. And I hope that they can connect with you on shurkyjurky.com and begin to have a love for jerky. and it's a new way of snacking.
Totally. It is an experience. We tell people to eat it slowly, chew light for the first few seconds, because the saliva actually rehydrates the meat, and 5 seconds in, this roller coaster of flavor happens, and then your brain gets bombarded. So it really is a very unique eating experience.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mike, for creating a valuable product that is helping people and the environment. I truly appreciate you.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting us.